I'm gonna do it right now.
Okay.
Alrighty, so for everybody at home, we got 2 bolsters. We got 2 of the same size blankets or pillows for our hips. Put a little something underneath your pelvis. You're gonna create a T with your bolster, use blocks or whatever you got. We're doing a nest Wanoa. And then you bring your pelvis nice and close to the bolster, right? And you wanna have your salt bags super close because you're gonna use them. And then you take a block and you're gonna put it between your pelvic floor and your heels, like so. And then you wanna take your strap and make a great big loop to start with. Right, so it's a great big loop to start with. And then you're gonna open your strap, right? So you've got a receiving end, which is what you clip into, and you've got a giving end, which goes into the receiving end. And then we're gonna take the receiving end, which is the end with an opening, right? So we've opened our strap, we've made it nice and long, and we're gonna take the strap under the baby toe edge of our foot, and then we're gonna put the receiving end of the buckle on the block. And then we take the strap over our ankle so it crosses around our back. We try not to twist, and we bring it around our pelvis. And then we put the giving end into the receiving end. And then we shorten the strap. And you don't want the buckle pushing into your flesh. And then I like to have the straps kind of over that block. I want to have it close but not tight because when I go back, it's going to be more intense. And then once I have this set up, I'm going to take my blankets and they're folded this shape. I'm going to fold it in half and in half again. And then I bring it right up underneath this hip. So I fold it lengthwise in half and then lengthwise half again and then bring that in, right? And then I want to make sure that it's pretty even. And then I'm going to put my weights on the other side, on the inner thighs, and then I come down, and if it's too tight, I'm then going to release the strap. I always like to lengthen and traction the back of the skull. Let's do a little bit of thoracic part, so some circles. Forward circles, backward circles with the fingers holding the elbows. I'm going to come around with the smell. If you don't want smell in the room at all, we totally get it. You know, raise your hand now and I'm fine not using smells. We're good. And if we're good, I'm going to start us off with peppermint. Oh, spearmint actually. So slow circles backwards. And then we're going to open and close our elbows. And then elbows at a shoulder's height. We're going to go up and down like a jumping jack. And then let those arms come down beside you. Take the block on your belly, nice and low. I can have my elbows on the floor doing this, but yours might be floating a little bit. But stabilize your wrist, and then inhale, belly lifting the block, and exhale, belly sinking beneath you. So really pull the belly towards the block. So my fingertips are just kind of grazing the block so that the block can move really freely. And as I exhale, I pull my belly towards my back. The fingers go higher up the block. And then as I inhale, the belly is going to lift the block really high. So I'm going to exhale, pulling my belly towards my back. And I'm going to inhale, feeling the belly lifting nice and high. Let's take 2 more breaths just like that with that belly movement. block beside you. Bring your arms out beside you, palms facing up. Gently rooting the elbows, the forearms, the shoulders down into the floor. Almost feel like you could relax and melt your trapezius down your back, and then just rock your head a little left, a little right, and then bring your chin back into center. Really focus on your body from the inside. Now, pull your belly towards your back, and then breathe into that same space, but instead of the belly lifting like it's going to float the block, I want you to think about breathing into your sacrum and your pelvic floor. And then once you feel like you can breathe no more into that little space, let the belly kind of lift up towards the ceiling. And then exhale to feel that space sinking, shrinking, contracting. So we're breathing into the sacrum, the pelvic floor where the block is, and then the front of the belly. I think we're going to skip the magic square. We're just going to really focus on the breath, just calming the nervous system without thinking.
Can we have that scrubber?
Oh, you didn't have it yet? Oh, sorry, I'm like, my eyes smell so much like spearmint from the last class. I thought I did it. I almost poured it all over my body last class accidentally. Thank you for reminding me. So if you want the spearmint, left hand, did I get you? Left hand, you know the drill.
Didn't get anything.
You did, I'm coming back. It's either a rock or a fiddle. Hold on. You good? Nothing happened last time. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like nothing a lot. You have to change the lid on this one. You can put any extra you have. I rub it in my hair. It's not good for hair. So again, really feel that pelvic floor as it expands towards the block. Feel the sacrum as it pushes down into the floor. And yes, we can create movement into those spaces, actual physical movement. I just listened to a new podcast with James Nestor. It's the one on, what is it, modern? Oof. Anyway, it's that Chris Wilkinson, it's modern something. Anyway, James Nestor has a 20-minute podcast on there, which is great for people that don't want to listen to 2 hours. He just bangs it out in 20 minutes. Modern Human, maybe? Anyway, it's Chris Wilkinson. And he said that if you put a tape measure, it physically moves, right, as we move into those hips. So it's not just your imagination, it is a physical movement, which you can eventually feel. But it's nice to have the scientists say that when you put a tape measure there, it also shows that happening. And then bring your hands onto your side hips, elbows on the floor, relax your shoulders. So again, really strong Samana Vayu. Pull your belly towards your back, Mula Bandha, from pubic bone to groin to tailbone to groin to pubic bone. It's like it's the top of a garbage bag and you're gonna squeeze it to center. So we take those points, you know, if you pull a drawstring, it makes the sack smaller. Think about a string being around the outside of that pelvic floor, and it's like you're pulling that string, and let that pelvic floor kind of contract towards the center, and then feel like you could lift that pelvic floor up. And then as you pull your leg bones into your hips, feel like you could lift the sacrum in your body and allow the breath to not go into the back or the pelvic floor or the front, but breathe into your hips so that you physically feel those hips expanding like accordions. And as you exhale, you physically feel those hips contracting back to center. So again, thinking laterally, like an accordion, hips extending out on the inhale, and hips contracting in on the exhale. a little more shallow to find that movement, that direction. Patient. This is more Mozart than it is dun 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 dun, right? And it takes a little while to find Mozart. So even if we're just breathing into our belly, we're one step closer to versus dun dun dun. But do what you can. Next thing you know, you're doing what you never thought you could. And then now that we found the breath laterally into our hips, let's combine all of those areas. So think of which area is the trickiest for you. Is it the pelvic floor? Is it the sacrum? Is it the right hip, left hip? And then breathe into that spot first. It's like hiking with a toddler. You want to put the toddler in front of you so you don't forget it. And then once you fill that space with your breath, let the breath spread into the other areas of that lower body. Remember, we shouldn't feel our knees. A stretch in the hips is good, but we don't want it to be too intense. You good, Jessica? Give me a thumbs up if you're okay. You're good? Okay. You can't hear me? Okay, you're good. Okay, sweet. Oh, I see. Gotcha. So new moons, we're meant to take it a little bit easier, do a little less, but really dive in on what direction we're going. And so in life, it's good to have goals, right? If we don't have anything to do, we get bored, and a bored mind is not a healthy mind. And so I like to use the time between full moon and new moon in each new year to create some intentions. I like to break my priorities down. So some people start with 3 priorities. I've worked up to 5 priorities, and then I break those 5 priorities into what I need to do for them. So for example, my first priority is always my family, and then I'm going to break that down into the kids, Stephen, my parents, my brother, and Maddie. And because they're a top priority, I just make sure that the first thing I do every year is I schedule enough attention for all of those areas. And then I go to my second priority and my third priority, and again, I just look at those areas of my life. What am I lacking in? What do I work on that year? And then I break those areas down into what I need to work on. And then I create almost like a map that I can like chart out through the seasons, so that this time next year, I've not only challenged myself the right amount, but I've accomplished something so that I can move on to the next step. So let's just take 10 more breaths here. Maybe we've already done that and we can move on to mantras for whatever we're working on this month, this season. Or maybe we're still contemplating, what do we need to create space for? How do we create that space? It's really hard to buy a new couch if you're not willing to get rid of the old couch. Let's take 10 more breaths here. When those 10 breaths are complete, just bringing those arms beside you, palms facing up, let everything melt down, heavy into the floor as we find our breath, just our natural breath. And if I want to reset my nervous system, this is my go-to. I think it's one of the best poses to meditate in. Just be here in your body in this moment. And then when you're ready, you're just gonna unbuckle that clip. We're gonna fire up our feet to bring our knees up, push into our feet, and just kind of wiggle our hips. Like that was more than 15 minutes. Like it's crazy, hey? Just goes that pose. All right, so from here, if you have a sensitive back or you have tight hamstrings, do this just flat on the floor, okay? So it's like the hamstring thing. So if you've got like tight hamstrings, flat on your back. If you're comfy on the bolster, comfy on the bolster. We're gonna use 2 straps. So the pull off to the side, or if you're comfortable, just sit up. You want the strap to be pointing down, like the tail of the cat is not going up, but the tail of the cat is going down. And then just take a great big loop and put it behind your back, like around your waist. Eventually we want it just below our shoulder blades, but have it there so it's handy. And then take your other strap, which I didn't grab yet. So we got two. And if you only have one strap, then don't worry about the strap over your hip. So this strap that I have on first is my most important strap. The second strap, you're gonna get it nice and big circle. I gotta find the right length here. This one will be long enough, okay? So the second strap, you make sort of a nice big circle. And this is where it gets dyslexic. I'm gonna put it over my left foot, and then over my right hip flexor. I'm gonna hold this right leg, first in a half wind remover. I'm gonna push my foot into the strap, and I'm gonna allow this to pull my hip flexor, making sure it's level. And then the next stage, I'll show you, but then we're not gonna do it right away, is to take the foot over the strap. So you wanna have roughly the right length so that you can have, my flexibility is here, but I'm gonna start with my ankle, my knee, and my hip stacked, and the tail pointing down, and the buckle pretty close to my foot with the strap under my shoulder blades. But I'm gonna start with just a little half wind remover, shoulders relax. Right, and some of us are just gonna have one strap here. So if you only have one strap, it's this strap. That's shoulder blades, foot, but then bend your knee and find this. And then push into that left foot and have it pull on the right hip flexor. If you're totally lost, I'll come around. Does anybody feel lost? I think we're all getting it. This ain't our first rodeo. Good. Let's just take 5 more breaths and a half wind remover. If you're lost, intense leg stretches is great too, right? If you're at home and you're like, oh my God, what is she doing? Just do, everybody knows intense leg stretch. And then when those 5 breaths are complete, straightening your arms, and you can do whatever arm you want. You can have your arms out beside you, palms facing up. This is really nice if you, you just want to open your chest, right? If you're more interested in opening your armpits, like you want to not have a frozen shoulder, then right hand takes left elbow, left hand takes right elbow, and you can take your arms overhead, shoulders relaxing. That's a nice option, right? Interlacing your fingers, right hand on top of left hand, elbows wide is a nice option. Just find something that's comfortable to hold. And knowing that we, in a deep shoulder position, don't just kick out of it, we would bring our elbows back over our shoulders to pull on the strap. And so just finding a nice shoulder position for you, melt your shoulders away from your ears, press into your foot, close your eyes, relax your brow. Now, really feeling your nostrils here. Like your nostrils are 2 caves, you're going to expand them and broaden them bigger. And you could totally watch TV like this. You know what I mean? In both of those poses. I mean, the other one I feel like it's a waste of the pose to watch TV in it, but like you could hold this for a really long time and just like watch a movie, you know? And broadening your nostrils, feeling that gentle breeze of breath on the inside of your nostrils, and just slow it down, smooth it out. And I don't know if that strap's long enough, Jessica. It's got to be a pretty, you know how I have these like kind of Cadillac straps? Oh, there you go, that's gonna work. And what I'm looking for here is that the foot is lifting my ribs, but then I'm using my back ribs to press down into the floor. Let's just take 5 more breaths, and then we're going to shorten the strap. So we're going to have a total of 2 shortenings, right? So we don't want to go to our deepest on this next shortening. You want to go a little deeper, maybe a little more deeper, but not to your, oh my gosh, deepest. Feeling the strap on those ribs. And just like before, inhale to expand out into that strap. You feel the ribs expanding wide into the strap like an accordion. And as you exhale, feel those ribs contracting. You can add your hands to the ribs. Let your elbows come in closer. If you've taken them wide, take the tail of your strap and just give it a nice pull, whatever you feel is appropriate. But try and memorize, the length so that you can kind of do similar on the other side. Go back to whatever shoulder you want to do. And again, feel that U shape of the strap on your ribs. So it's like your U shape is finding the ribs, and then use your breath to push not only out to the sides like an accordion, but down into the strap underneath the shoulder blades. And so for me, sometimes I like to visualize that I've got salt bags on my front floating ribs, that I've got shoelaces between my pelvis and my front floating ribs so that I'm shortening the space in the front body between my pelvis and my ribs, and that allows me to breathe a little bit more fully into my back ribs. And so for me, it's easier to breathe into my side ribs, I'm noticing, than my back ribs. So I'm going to start by breathing into my back ribs, and then I'm going to let it move into my side ribs, but I'm not even breathing into my front ribs yet if I can help it. Taking 5 more breaths, and I'm going to shorten one more time. So like a U shape, filling the back ribs into that strap. When those 5 breaths are complete, bring the elbows in a little bit more neutral, release those arms, and then if it's appropriate, one more time, pull in that strap. And so I've done it in thirds, so I went equal distance each time. Right, and find that shoulder again if you fancy. Sometimes when the leg gets high, I find that my arms down is a better fit, right? I want to keep that ability to breathe into the shoulders, melt those shoulders, press into your feet. And so this time, again, side ribs, back ribs, and then front ribs, or back ribs, side ribs, front ribs, whatever you feel is most challenging, right? If you're finding the lateral breath into the side ribs like an accordion harder, start there. If you find breathing underneath the shoulder blades into the back ribs, feel the rib cage pushing into the bolster harder, start there. And then once you've completely filled the back and side body, then when we breathe into the front ribs, they won't pop. Right? There'll be no change in the spine. And think strong Samanavayu. Think of the outer hips squeezing in. Think of a Mula Bandha, pelvic floor muscles gently lifting, squeezing and lifting. Take 10 more breaths here. What I really want us to focus, particularly if we're working on our inversions, if we practice this week, is really feeling that hip flexor moving in the opposite direction of the armpit. It's going to be really helpful. That lift in the hip flexor is 10 out of 10 useful. And when those 10 breaths are complete, if you've got like a really nice strap, you can kind of lift the strap and just let it kind of loosen on its own, or just undo the buckle, right? But I find if I can kind of lift, I don't have to redo the buckle. Remove the strap, keep it around your body like a belt kind of, bend that knee and just pull that in and just take a few breaths here. And then the quickest way is to just take your fingers, like little hooks, into your strap by your hip flexor, and then straighten both feet into the strap, right? So both feet are in the strap, fingers are pulling the strap to you, and then you just bend the left knee, catching the hip flexor, and then interlace your fingers over that left knee, and start with a little half wind remover. So again, if you don't have two straps, don't worry about the strap over the hip flexor. Keep the strap around the rib cage. That's kind of the priority, but use your imagination to pull that left hip flexor away from that left armpit. Neck neutral, shoulders relaxed. Let's just take 5 more breaths here. Pushing into your foot, getting that tug on that left hip. And just even this is just a game changer for some people's backs and hips. They leave feeling like $1 million, right? Which is a nice thing. And then when those 5 breaths are complete, remember we start with the ankle right over the hip, right? So you find the tail of the strap pointing down, and you get the ankle, the knee, and the hip stacked. And then you're gonna push both feet into the strap, and then remembering which crossing you took. And then again, let's start by focusing on breathing into the side ribs. So my strap is on my side ribs. I can even put my hands on my side ribs to get it started if I wanted to. And you physically move out to the side. But in order to not move up, I like wet concrete on the inside of my back rib cage, pushing my back rib cage into the floor. And then I want to think about just expanding to the sides and then back into center. Expanding out into the sides and then back into center as I think about breathing into my ribs. And again, I can come off this bolster anytime I want to. It does make it a lot deeper on the bolster. Again, broadening the nostrils away from the gentle breeze of breath, tracking that breath down your trachea, into your lungs, and imagine those lungs expanding out to the side. Feel those lungs pressing on the inside of the ribs to make those ribs expand laterally. When you think you're empty, squeeze the intercostal muscles to bring those ribs closer. Feel the ribs pulling away from the strap. And then when you're totally empty in the ribs, inhale to once again expand the rib cage out. Now that we've found that, let's breathe into the back rib cage. So again, it's like the back ribs push down into the strap, into the bolster, no longer focusing on the side ribs. If you have a hard time, think about hands. You can put your hands on the side ribs, but think of hands gently holding the side ribs in place and encourage that breath to move backwards into the bolster. As we take more breaths into the back rib cage, restricting the movement to the side ribs. And then let the breath spill from the back ribs to the side ribs as we take 5 more breaths here. And those 5 breaths are complete. Bring those elbows into a more neutral position. Bring the hands around and try to be symmetrical on your 2 sides. Shorten your strap. Again, you can move your strap if you need to. Go back into whatever shoulder you did. In the middle, stage your breath. And then hopefully you observed if your back ribs or your side ribs were more of a weaker link when it came to breath. And start with your weaker length. So for me, back ribs is harder, so I'm going to start by breathing into the back ribs, trying to get my back ribs to press that strap down into the bolster, and when I can no longer breathe into that space, I'm going to let the breath spill laterally to my right and left rib cages. Really focusing on your body from the inside, focusing on your breath. Is it cooling off in here? Is it too cool? You guys feeling okay? more breaths here. Let the breath spill from back ribs to side ribs to front ribs without those front ribs popping as we find those last 5 breaths at this stage. And then bringing those elbows back over the shoulders, lifting the head, bringing those hands around, and just going to your final stage with the strap, finding your arms. Like I said, I like to have my arms beside me for this last stage. Really melt those shoulders, lift those armpits away from the hip flexors. Feel like your left leg is pushing into a wall versus trying to come to you. And then when you're ready, just focus on breathing into the ribs, right? Keeping the lower body kind of squeezing gently as you breathe into your back ribs, side ribs, and front ribs, without there being a huge popping of that front rib cage, because we're really allowing the back rib cage to push down into the strap, into the bolster. Let's take 10 more breaths into that space. So Newman's interesting because again, we're called on to do less, and we've literally done 2 poses in 45 minutes, and it feels freaking fabulous. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to do it all. So when you're ready, I like to just use my thumb to kind of loosen that, or just undo the buckle, or slide it over your foot, whatever you fancy. But then bend your knee, interlace your finger, pull it in, give that a nice release. Get that strong, pull in the hip flexor. And then let that foot hit the floor. Remove the straps, place them beside you. Pick up your pelvis, give you a wiggle. Now if you're someone that wants to practice Supta Virasana, you know what you're doing, you can do it quietly and efficiently. Then put yourself into Supta Virasana with the double bolster. If you don't know what Supta Virasana is, that's not your business. The knees are going to touch and you're going to heel toe the feet apart, and you're going to pigeon toe the baby toe edge of the foot. I'm going to come around with another smell before we do our armpit breaths. You know the drill. Let's do sage. Then you're gonna reach your arms up like a zombie. You've got like 2 kind of like hockey stick hands. And so you're gonna take your right hand and you're gonna put your thumb on the front of your armpit and your index finger really into that armpit, okay? Then your left arm is gonna go through the right triangle, like the right arm is making a triangle, and you're gonna put your index finger really into that armpit. And then you're gonna let those armpits fall down. And then we're going to do the same thing. For our first set, we're going to think about breathing laterally out to the side like an accordion. And as we exhale, we're going to let that breath come in. So inhale, feel the breath moving out to the sides, into your hands, armpits physically expanding. And then exhale, feel that space contracting. And then do you want a little bit of smell here? Think of that imprint in your pelvis. Ready for it? And we did right hand first. You guys, if the bowls make it really hard for you to hear me, let me know. I'm going to talk a little less, so I'm going to play the bowls. You love the bowls even on there? Perfect. Okay, but let me know. And then kind of restrict the breath laterally and breathe into your back shoulders, shoulder blades. one's more challenging, and breathe into that area first, whether it's the back or the sides, and then let the breath spill into the other area. And then let it spill up into the sternum, the collarbones, and the throat. No force, no agitation, just beautiful breaths into your upper body. And then when you're ready, nice inhale, reach those arms up towards the sky, lengthen, lengthen, lengthen. This time, left hand comes into right armpit, right hand goes through left triangle, finding your armpits, letting those arms fall down heavy. And feel like the lower part of your bodies are kind of hugging themselves into center, so you can breathe into those three parts of your upper chest, shoulders, and armpits. Always starting with your weakest point of breath in that particular area, that top shelf of your torso. Reaching those fingers up towards the sky. Let those arms fall down heavy on the floor beside you. Let those palms face up. Melt your shoulders. Relax your jaw. Relax your face. And then heel, toe your feet in. Kind of wiggle your hips a little bit to move your hips to the left, to roll off to the right, to push yourself up. Move your bolsters kind of to the side. If you need to straighten out your legs, straighten out your legs. And then we're all gonna meet on our seats, just hugging those legs. Okay, I'm gonna show you your options. I'm gonna give you a bunch of options. Once you release the backs of the knees, just give those legs a nice hug. Breathe into your back. Let that back round a little bit. Big, beautiful breaths. And I'm going to give you, I think I'll give you 4 hip options, just because we're all at different places. Alrighty. So option A is a pigeon. Right? So a pigeon where everyone's going to do their right hip. Pigeon long hold is a wonderful option. We're all very familiar. If you're not, you can ask, but the knee comes to the ankle. We find a 45, we walk it back, and then we just hold a really nice long pigeon, right? However we want to do the shoulders, we can. To come out of it, we foot, knee in, okay? So that's a lovely option. Another lovely option is to hold a half baby, right? So in a half baby, I'm trying to keep my hips level. I may straighten this leg, I may not, right? But even if I straighten that leg or don't straighten that leg, I'm working on keeping my hips level. In a half baby, the knee and the ankle are pointing out. Some people do it with their foot pointing up, but to me, that the goal here is to do it behind the head, right, for Nidrasana. And you need to have the knee pointing out to get that rotation. So why not hold it here for long holds and get that rotation, right? So with this one, it's ankle over knee, knee in line with hip, and it's not super wide, right? Because when we do take it behind the head, it's really close. So you want to try and keep it pretty gosh darn close, right? And this leg is straight. I've got a bowl there, you get the drill, right? Doing a nice long one of these is so good for us. We could go for the hug, where the elbow comes to the knee and the elbow comes to the foot, right? If this is really comfortable and the leg is level and we have no wrinkles, then the right hand can come a pillow for the head, the left elbow can come underneath the right, and then you can kind of do like a half baby combo with, right? So I'll show you this direction, and if you need me to talk you through it, just tell me. So you start in a happy baby, right? And you pull it in, and you see if you can do a hug first. So you can see that one elbow is on one foot and one elbow is on the knee, and it's not, my shoulders and neck are still neutral. If I was unable to keep a neutral neck there, I wouldn't be going that deep, right? So then from a nice comfy hold in my happy baby, and I'll cue you if you want to go deeper, I'm going to take my right hand behind my head like a pillow. I'm going to take my left elbow around my heel to grab my fingers. My foot comes down and my foot lengthens, right? I don't necessarily want to do this. Personally, I'd rather keep my knee bent and my neck neutral because of my age, and just I really, really love my neck. Right? And then you release. So pick your poison, right? So pigeon, regular old thread the needle, or happy baby on the right side, or happy baby meets thread the needle. If you need a demo, let me know. But we want it to be ideally the right hip. So usually I do a really nice long thread the needle before I do the Happy Baby meets thread the noodle. And if I'm doing the Happy Baby meets thread the needle, I'm going to hug those legs eventually. So that the elbow comes around the knee and the foot. Right? You sort of gradually get into it. Nice. And so here we feel this hip, so you think of that strap pulling this hip back. There you go. You feel how that's even now? Good. Good, good, good. And the pelvis is level, which is really nice. Either pose you're doing, it's really, really active. Let's add a strap, because if I looked at the direction of this foot, right, you see what I'm looking at? So if we add a strap, right, and then you can take the ankle up a little bit, right, and then I can point both my knee, and then I think of this external. You feel that difference? Yeah. Yeah. So I think of an external rotation. I visualize one day I'm going to externally rotate so much that foot goes in my head. It doesn't have to be this lifetime. So your business is to lift this up. Yeah, there you go. See how the shoulder came with it? Nice. And so feet are super strong. We should feel our knees. And so if we're in that hugging pose, right, where we're hugging our thread the needle, then the first thing I do is I keep my left arm where it is. I think of an external rotation. I put my elbow behind my head, and I put my right hand on my left shoulder. Then I slide my elbow, my left elbow under my right heel, and then I can just hold there with my left knee supporting, or I can let that left foot come down and just test drive that. And then I can choose to straighten that left leg or not. Right? Just listening to the shoulder. For me, this is almost more shoulder than it is hip. Really think that you still have a strap in both your hip flexors. Whatever pose you're doing, really pull your hip flexor away from your armpit. So I'm going to touch you here. We're just going to pull, yep, and then we're just going to do a little, there we go. Nice. Then we're going to see if we can pull back. Feet strong, beautiful breaths. So just remember, keep it, because you're there, but you're doing the left hip. So just do the next hip other time. Okay. Just remember it's opposite. For me, I would do the same hip twice. Oh, I see. Yeah. I would forget. That's why we always do the right first. Big, beautiful breaths into that hip. And so deep hip, deep shoulder pose. Often bring around the get me the fuck out of here-ism, which is normal. And if you feel like you need to get out of the pose, do. But is it necessity? Like, is it a want or a need? Just like cleaning your room, you'd rather go, out to the movies or something. Or some people just want to stay home all the time and clean their room. They never go out to the movies. Right? You want to make sure that it's a need and not a want that you're taking care of. We store a lot of emotional stuff in our knees and our hips, and so always remembering on these classes, Modern Wisdom is the podcast. James Nestor, Modern Wisdom. It's a really good short cap of breath work. When those 10 breaths are complete, if you're in Pigeon, you're going to tuck that back toe, walk it in until you can pivot at the hip to release the leg, straightening the knee. If you know how to come out of thread the needle. If you're in a half baby, half thread the needle, bring that left knee back to really support the leg, and then lift your head, release that right arm, go back into a gentle thread the needle just to let your neck and your shoulders relax. I often like to really slowly rock my head left and right, and then bringing that foot onto the floor. Let's draw that right knee towards the navel to uncross, to open and close. Good. And then let's do the other side. Let's take that left ankle onto that right knee or Pigeon, whatever you're doing. If you need help, ask. And then slowly make your way into the first stage of your pose. Taking your time. If you need help, let me know. Now, whatever posture you're doing, really visualizing that strap in your hip flexor, pulling it away from your armpit. Think about breathing laterally into that left hip. If you're doing thread the needle, go into that second stage, elbow to foot, elbow to knee. Left arm behind your head, put your left fingers on your right shoulder. You externally rotate your right arm to hook your elbow under your heel, keeping that right leg up to support. I like to hook my fingers and then just hold there for a few breaths, traction your hip flexors to create the space to go deeper. Try and have the armpits level, shoulders level, hips level, and then eventually the right foot comes to the floor. My head pushes into my elbow to strengthen my neck for what's coming, and then I eventually am going to straighten that right leg if it feels appropriate. But I can do that over the course of many breaths. When those 10 breaths are complete, heel toe your back foot in if you're in pigeon. Float that right leg back towards your right ankle. Release your left arm, release your right arm. Find your way into just a regular old thread the needle, maybe rocking the thread the needle or the skull just a little bit. And then eventually letting that foot come to the floor, draw the knee towards the navel, uncross, open and close that knee a few times. And then we're going to finish off with just a supported back bend. I feel like doing 2 bolsters, but if you're at home and you don't have 2 bolsters, just putting as high a block underneath your pelvis as you fancy, and then eventually straightening the legs like a regular old setu bandha. I love me a 2 bolster setu bandha. So instead of making a T, we make a plus. Make sure you got lots of room on your mat here, okay? You make a plus like this. So the top bolster is the highest bolster. I got lots of room for my head. I'm going to start with my tailbone low. I'm going to lower over the bolster, right? I'm going to grab my head, just kind of pull my elbows in and back, and I'm going to slide until my shoulders hit the floor. I'm going to make sure my shoulders are down, arms beside me, and then I'm going to straighten my legs slowly, knees and feet at hips distance apart. So either a 2 bolster setu bandha, or you could put a block instead of a second bolster, though it's not as comfortable, or you can just put a block or 2 underneath your pelvis, whatever you fancy. What matters here is that I'm not loosey-goosey with my legs. I want to have my heels pointing down and my toes pointing up. And if I happen to have very flexible knees, I lift the backs of the knees slightly, right? So I don't want dead weight in my knees here. And then we're going to use this position to breathe first into the lower body, then the middle body, then the upper body. I'm going to come around with one final smell. If you need to come out, I shoulder walk towards my head. But what I want to see here 100% is that I can't put my hands under your shoulders. So you've got to keep going until your shoulders are all the way on the floor. And you're on 2 humongous bolsters, so that's pretty deep. So if you want to keep going, and you got your bolsters the wrong way.
Yeah, but you want your back to your spine.
So scooch down.
And squeeze way down.
There you go. And then try again. And the shoulders have to be all the way down.
Because when you get off, you're going to exit.
Good. I'll come around with one more smell. We're going to go a little bit over just because the extra 10 minutes is so good. So if you need to wrap it up, take 10 more breaths and then wrap it up for Shavasana. All right, I'm going to come around with lemongrass. I think I am. Let me see if I have any in here. We need some. Oh yeah, I've got lemongrass. So if you want lemongrass, give me your left hand. Now with this one, I want to have my elbows halfway to a T, so they go this way, yeah. Just because the pelvis is high, with the arms lower, you're going to be able to push into the arms so it's less weight in the back of the skull. If my knees were bent, I could bring my arms overhead if my feet were like more firmly pressing.
Okay.
But yeah, no worries. But because the weight, is kind of more in the head, you want to make sure you can really push into those arms. So once we find this position, really think about those 3 layers of breath. You can think of 3 stacked tires, 3 lifesavers, whatever you fancy, but think of them as very dimensional. Think of a back body, a side body, a front body, and all the space in between. Know your weakness. Is the back body or the side body harder, right? And then start with the bottom floor, right? Wrap that breath around. You got pelvic floor, you got two hips, you got a sacrum. Once you breathe completely into that lower area, let the breath move up into the back floating ribs, the side ribs, the front ribs, and then the armpits, the shoulders, the armpit chest, the collarbones, the upper shoulders, the traps. Breathe into the throat and then let that breath spill into your skull. Let your skull expand in all directions, like it's a balloon, getting bigger. Good. And then when you exhale, let the crown of the head, the sides of the head, the back of the head squeeze. Exhale the head, then the throat, then the upper body, then the mid body, then the lower body. Really encouraging yourself without force to find these beautiful floods of breath from the base of your spine all the way to your skull. Smooth out those waves of breath. Jessica, see if you can keep your heels centered. No external rotation in those legs if you can help it. When those 10 breaths are complete, you're gonna bend your knees, and then you can shoulder walk. You can push the bolsters away from you, and try to keep yourself pretty, like as little movement as possible. Make your way into Shavasana. Bolster under the thighs is nice. If that was a deep back bend for you, give those legs a nice hug for wind remover. Little blanket under your head is nice when we're trying to do less. And Shavasana. And I'll kill the big leg, but we'll still be here with our bowls. toes, nice big inhale to stretch. And then exhale to let those arms fall down heavy as you start to bend your knees and walk your feet towards your seat. Eventually rolling off to the side and bringing yourself up into a nice comfy seated position. Hands coming into Namaskara. Let's end with a nice big group Om before we dedicate the merit of our practice. May we use this class so that all beings may find happiness. May we all be free of disease. May we see what is auspicious, and may no one suffer. Shanti, 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 He. Peace, peace, peace. Thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your practice. Namaste. 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 Namaste, Mandy. Thanks, Wanoa. We'll see you next time. Be well. So Lisa and Maddie's having babies this spring, and they're bigger than we anticipated.
We have a puppy.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
I should have told you sooner. What kind of puppy did you get?
Well, we were up north. There was this, farm dog.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, yeah,
Nice.
he's super cute.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, but he's kind of a handful. She's very well behaved.
She is, and her boyfriend is very calm. But they're mountain dogs too, right? So they're big and small. If you need another one.
Yeah, right. Tempting. How was Thailand, or wherever you were?
It was so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really chill. It was exactly what we needed. It was one of the easiest trips I've ever done. We literally went to paradise and ate Thai food that was mind-blowingly
That
good.
sounds amazing.
And we spent so much time with elephants that the kids got bored with feeding elephants and petting elephants. Like, you've got it good when you're bored.